You are watching the National News Desk, America's News Now.
They've made clear that there's not a path, and if there's not a path, you're going to spend a lot of political capital for a losing cause.
Nomination shakeup. Controversial pick Matt Gaetz no longer seeking the Justice Department's top job. What this means for the investigations, as well as who might be the next AG nominee. Then it is beginning to look a lot like Christmas before Thanksgiving. How much snow is expected as separate storm systems wreak havoc coast to coast? And record-breaking holiday travel. What your upcoming moves indicate about a post-pandemic boom. This is the National News Desk, America's News Now. I'm Amira David. Former Congressman Matt Gaetz has withdrawn his name as a nominee for Attorney General when Donald Trump returns to the White House in January. The former congressman was on Capitol Hill yesterday seeking support from Republican senators, but today he is going in a different direction. And let's get right to Matt Gaetz. He's live in Washington, D.C. for us with more of the reactions from Capitol Hill and what led to this big development. Matt.
Yeah, Amira, and tonight on Capitol Hill, more than a few of Gaetz' fellow Republicans are relieved as his potential nomination was putting many of them in a tight spot, and he seemingly did not have the votes. Now, they won't need to take that vote. Gaetz posted his decision on X, saying, "While the momentum was strong, it is clear that my confirmation was unfairly becoming a distraction to the critical work of the Trump-Vance transition." Trump responded on Truth Social by praising Gaetz, saying, "Matt has a wonderful future, and I look forward to watching all of the great things he will do." Gaetz was facing personal scandals, including investigations into inappropriate sexual encounters, potentially with a minor. Gaetz had denied the allegations and never faced charges, but being named by Trump put increased scrutiny on a still unreleased House Ethics Committee report looking into the allegations.
Matt Gaetz was never qualified to hold this position, but that was actually kind of the point. He was nominated not to actually execute the duties of Attorney General, as America would expect that person to do, but rather to be a loyalist and to exact retribution on Donald Trump's perceived enemies.
Can't disagree with the decision Matt Gaetz made. He was controversial. He understood that. I actually appreciate the fact that he withdrew so that President Trump can put somebody else in place, maybe less controversial. But let's face it, this is going to be a pitched battle. I've been a target of the corruption within the FBI, so I know exactly why President Trump wants to have somebody who's incredibly loyal.
And Amira, the attorney for the alleged victims at the center of the Gaetz scandal, said, "My clients are relieved to have this chapter behind them and eager to move forward with their lives. We're hopeful this brings final closure for all parties involved."
All right, and Matt, what about Gaetz' future? He resigned from Congress, but could he technically return?
Yeah, this is where it gets a little tricky. Gaetz did resign and his seat is currently vacant, but he resigned from the current Congress. He did win election for the next Congress that gets sworn in January. It gives him a little bit of political wiggle room to return, but it's unknown if he would do that. He did say in his resignation he did not intend to take the oath of office for the 119th U.S. Congress in January.
Okay.
Amira?
All right, we'll see what happens. Live from Washington, D.C., Matt Gaetz, thank you for that report. Both the Northeast and the Northwest dealing with a wintry mix of rain and snow tonight. Right now in Indiana, West Virginia, and parts of New York, we are expecting to see anywhere between 1 and 6 inches of snow. For New York, under drought alerts in recent days, this is the first measurable precipitation in more than a month. On the West Coast, meantime, giving you a live look now over San Francisco, where they're preparing for a second wave of that bomb cyclone, bringing heavy rain, snow, and wind all the way north to the Canadian border. Forecasters predict the worst flooding around Northern California, which could see 16 inches of rain in the next 48 hours. Higher elevation in the mountains could get several feet of snow. The Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office in shock and mourning today as 2 sheriff deputies were killed while a third is fighting for his life in the hospital after a deadly crash this morning. Aerial footage of the aftermath of the crash showed 3 smashed motorcycles along with an SUV with heavy front end damage. At this time, unclear what led to the accident. No information about the condition of the driver of the SUV at this time. And the father of an alleged school shooter in Georgia says he does not share responsibility for the September shooting. 54-year-old Colin Gray pleaded not guilty to 29 charges, including second-degree murder and involuntary manslaughter. His 14-year-old son, Colt Gray, allegedly killed 4 people at Appalachia High School, 2 students, 2 teachers, and wounded several others. The teen pleaded not guilty. According to investigators, the teen's mother asked Colin Gray to secure his guns in the weeks before the shooting. Developing now, Texas has put up more buoys in the Rio Grande, even with lawsuits about the first set of buoys that are still going on right now. The Department of Justice sued Texas over that issue, and they've been in a legal battle ever since. One attorney says there's a reason the state installed more buoys now instead of waiting until President-elect Trump takes office in a few months.
Many individuals that are illegally trying to enter the country, they know they've got a very short window. And so we can expect more and more people trying to flood into Texas.
Governor Greg Abbott's office says in part, quote, despite the Biden administration's fighting us every step of the way, courts have ruled that Texas has the right to deploy floating marine barriers. On Capitol Hill today, Alejandro Mayorkas and Christopher Wray were no-shows before the annual national security hearing at the Senate. The chairman of the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee says it is the first time in more than 15 years that leaders of the FBI and Homeland Security declined to testify on threats to the homeland. A separate House hearing featuring the pair was also postponed indefinitely. The FBI says in a statement it has testified extensively in public settings, but the committee would benefit more from a classified briefing. DHS has not yet commented, and it comes one day after authorities arrested a Florida man for an alleged plot to bomb the New York Stock Exchange. According to court documents, the FBI began investigating 30-year-old Horn Yerner in February. Yerner reportedly told undercover agents that he wanted to detonate the bomb the week before Thanksgiving in an attempt to, quote, reboot the U.S. government. Yerner had his first court appearance on Wednesday afternoon, and he remains detained while he awaits trial. New tonight, 2 cases involving transgender girls playing school sports and the right to protest that participation came before a New Hampshire federal court today. In July, Governor Chris Sununu signed a law banning transgender athletes from playing on teams aligned with their identity in grades 5 through 12. But earlier this year, a federal judge ruled 2 specific teams could try and play while advocates seek to repeal that law. And school district officials sued to extend a ban against parents who protest transgender athletes' participation at sporting events. The previous ban has expired. No decisions were made today. And the 2019 conviction against actor Jussie Smollett, his conviction, it's been overturned. The Illinois Supreme Court ruling that a special prosecutor should not have intervened after the charges against Smollett for staging an attack against himself that were initially dropped. Smollett claimed 2 men assaulted him, called him slurs, and put a noose around his neck in Chicago. In 2021, a jury convicted Smollett of 5 counts of disorderly conduct for the hoax, but the actor continues to maintain his innocence. No laughing matter. Tonight, concerns over serious, life-changing health challenges arising in young people who are using laughing gas to get high. The National News Desk's Mike Mangus speaks with a doctor raising the alarm on the loophole in the state of California that's making it a whole lot easier for sellers to get away with what should be illegal.
Dr. Garnis says she's seen 7 patients in a 2-month period, almost all young, whom she's diagnosed with a severe vitamin B12 deficiency. She says nitrous oxide, laughing gas, that comes in canisters like these, robs your body of B12, which is essential for the nervous system.
People pretty rapidly over a period of days to a week or so develop weakness, numbness, can't walk, global weakness, and they end up getting hospitalized. And I'm seeing people that are 7 months out from it and they're still walking with canes and have chronic uncontrolled neuropathic pain. Some people have no movement in their distal legs months later.
The only legitimate use for nitrous oxide is at your dentist to reduce anxiety and pain, or when you spread whipped cream on your dessert. Marketed toward youth with colors and flavors much like vape, it's sold in smoke shops in small canisters and large. This is from a Redding smoke shop. Right now in California, it is legal to sell nitrous oxide to adults.
But it is illegal to use it as a recreational drug.
Okay.
But
So the sellers, as of right now, are not technically. They're not.
they're operating within the law if they believe that all of these young people are making whipped cream.
That was Mike Mangus reporting. Coming up, Google gets slammed by the DOJ. What the Justice Department is asking Google to do, that the company is calling radical. Then an arrest warrant issued for Israel's prime minister over the country's military campaign in Gaza. Which countries say they'll adhere to the international ruling and which says it will not. And a medical warning to almost every patient in the hospital. Just how safe is that IV bag you're hooked up to? More when we come back. Tonight, Google is calling the DOJ's proposal to force a sale of its Chrome browser a radical interventionist agenda, saying it would hurt consumers and America's technological leadership. The response coming a day after the DOJ proposed a historic plan urging a judge to force big changes to prevent an illegal monopoly from recurring after a landmark ruling found Google had violated U.S. antitrust law by unfairly controlling the search engine market. If approved, the penalties could revolutionize how millions of Americans search for information and send ripples through the tech economy. Google is expected to file a counter remedy to the DOJ by December 20th. And tonight, the International Criminal Court has issued an arrest warrant for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Hamas official Mohammed Deif. The Netherlands-based court said it found, quote, reasonable grounds to believe Netanyahu allegedly used starvation as a method of warfare. The court also says Netanyahu bears responsibility for crimes against humanity of murder, persecution, and other inhumane acts. The ICC rejected Israel's challenge of its jurisdiction over the matter. Netanyahu's office calls the arrest warrant absurd and anti-Semitic. Warrants were also issued for former Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant and also Deif, who's known as Mohammed Diab Ibrahim al-Masri. The ICC says additional Hamas leaders were meant to be targets of the warrant but have since been killed. Israel says Deif was killed in a July strike, which Hamas at one time denied. Joseph Borrell, the vice president of the EU, said today that the ICC decision is binding for all EU member states. Canada also said they would uphold the arrest warrants, but the U.S., Israel's closest ally, has rejected them.
We remain concerned by the prosecutor's rush to seek arrest warrants and, some of the processes that this has played out in. And again, we've been very clear that the ICC does not have jurisdiction over this matter.
Bitcoin is knocking on the door of a $100,000 valuation. The gold standard cryptocurrency topping $98,000 today. It has skyrocketed more than 40% over the last 2 weeks. And one reason for its climb is the expectation that the incoming Trump administration will be favorable to the currency, including regulations that might give crypto a hint of legitimacy in the financial markets. Looking ahead, if you're flying somewhere this Thanksgiving, don't forget to pack your patience. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, along with leaders of the FAA and TSA, say they expect more Americans to travel for this holiday than ever before.
We are a week out from Thanksgiving, and TSA is expecting a potentially record-breaking holiday travel season. If recent experience is any guide, these will likely be some of the busiest travel days in U.S. history.
And Buttigieg says they are ready for the challenge and have taken measures to increase staffing and ensure general passengers make it through TSA in 30 minutes or less. They do recommend air travelers arrive to the airport early and double check the TSA prohibited items list to make sure that you cut down that time. 167,000 pounds of ground beef being recalled due to possible E. coli contamination. The beef was shipped to restaurants nationwide from Wolverine Packing Company. The USDA identified at least 15 patients getting sick in Minnesota from the beef. The agency says a sample tested yesterday was positive for E. coli. And we have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering the issues that matter most to you. We begin in Las Vegas, where local business owners celebrate a serial burglar finally being brought down in a joint operation with law enforcement.
It was awesome to hear that press conference that they finally caught the suspect. It's really fulfilling because I see all the officers that put in the overtime, through the sheriff's mandate to patrol the Spring Mountain corridor.
Colin Fukunaga is one of several business owners who's experienced his fair share of break-ins at his business along the Spring Mountain corridor. And while hearing of the more than 30-plus businesses across the valley, many of which reside along that same corridor, were being targeted, Fukunaga became one of the driving forces to help push for the arrest of the suspect, now identified as 34-year-old Cedric Hassan. Now with Hassan's arrest, Fukunaga says he and other business owners are looking forward to strengthening their relationship with Metro Police.
I just feel like this is just like the beginning of a continual relationship and a growing relationship that's going to happen in the Spring Mountain corridor.
State Superintendent Ryan Walters igniting a firestorm of controversy by ordering school districts to show students the video, which begins with the announcement of a new Office of Religious Liberty and Patriotism. In the video, before he begins to pray, he says,
"I will now say a prayer. And to be clear, students, you don't have to join, but if you so wish, I'm going to go ahead and pray."
TPS school board member Dr. Janetti Marshall is also a pastor, but, she says, requiring the district to show the prayer.
It violates the rights of children, parents, the staff, and anyone else that has a buy-in as a stakeholder in this district.
You've heard so much misinformation. You can't ever say a prayer in school. Well, sure you can. Your rights don't stop at the door.
The new Hope Drive extension in Cedar Park is now open for through traffic. Williamson County Commissioner Cynthia Long says it'll offer an alternate route for people driving on congested roads like 1431.
The idea of our arterial roadways is to be able to get the traffic off the major state roadways and to be able to use city and county roads to be able to connect in and out of the city.
The new corridor will connect Sam Bass Road and Ronald Reagan Boulevard, which are two of the city's most popular roads. Cedar Park Mayor Jim Penniman-Morin says the $29.5 million road project will also create room for economic development in the city.
Between Indigo Ridge, Perfect Game, future neighborhoods, businesses, and you're going to be able to say to your kids, I remember when this was just a 4-lane empty stretch of road.
IV bags are a necessity for patients in hospitals, but coming up, what our team has discovered about the potential dangers to your health that are largely kept in the dark. Welcome back to the National News Desk. 90% of hospital patients receive an IV, but Spotlight on America discovered a serious health threat that could be lurking within the IV bags and tubes. As national investigative correspondent Lisa Fletcher reveals, despite consensus among leading health groups and federal agencies, the danger hasn't been eliminated from healthcare systems nationwide.
The drip of medicine comes when we are at our most vulnerable. IV bags and tubes delivering often life-saving medications. But the very equipment carrying those crucial treatments may be undermining our care, leaching chemicals into our bodies.
I think at first it was shock and then just anger and maybe a little bit of confusion of why would companies do that.
The chemical is DEHP, used to make plastic flexible. It can be found in significant concentrations in millions of IV bags and hospital tubing systems in the U.S. But it doesn't stay there. Studies show the chemical can leach from plastic equipment directly into the blood. For decades, DEHP has been linked to neurological effects, multiple cancers, and reproductive issues. And studies have shown it can sabotage the effectiveness of chemotherapy for breast cancer patients.
Having cancer it's already such a shock, and it is such a fight to go through all the treatment, all the doctor's appointments, and then to find that the thing that, again, it's supposed to be helping you is, can be causing more harm.
Acindia Cheng was diagnosed with breast cancer about a year ago.
You think about the risks of taking the medication or going through the chemo, the side effects, all of that. You don't think about the vehicle in which it's being delivered.
Patients with higher levels of DEHP in their system have been shown to be at higher risk of breast cancer relapse and death.
That makes me so angry. It feels like betrayal in a way. I don't even have words.
This is a fixable issue, that we don't have to be exposed to toxic chemicals when we go into the hospital and have toxic chemicals pumped into our veins from an IV bag.
Suzanne Price is the CEO of Breast Cancer Prevention Partners.
The federal government banned this from children's toys because they knew it wasn't safe for children to be sucking on.
If DEHP has been deemed so toxic that it has to be taken out of children's toys, how is it still in products that leach directly into a person's blood?
I wish I had a better answer for you other than that is the way our system works. It's there just because it's allowed to be.
despite decades of science revealing its danger. Since 2002, the FDA has known about this issue and even warned about it. Yet still, in 2021, lawmakers admonished the agency for doing almost nothing about it. Approximately 70% of IV bags in the U.S. are made using DEHP, with the majority coming from the largest supplier of IV equipment in the U.S., Baxter.
I don't think the purchasers at the hospitals are aware, and I don't even think many of the doctors and nurses are aware.
We reached out to nearly 30 top hospital groups and asked if their IVs and bags contain DEHP and if they inform patients. The only one to respond was Sloan Kettering, which told us they always consider the presence of DEHP, and their main supplier is the leading DEHP-free manufacturer.
We have the right to demand better, and we should be pushing back and forcing companies to make better products that aren't harming us while they're trying to heal us.
Baxter, the leading maker of IV bags and tubing, did not respond to multiple requests for comment, but did say that they stand by the safety of their products. For Spotlight on America, I'm Lisa Fletcher.
Lisa, thank you for that. And they don't see eye to eye, but they do share a lot of common ground. When we come back, what brought the world's tallest and world's smallest women together for the very first time. And what you're seeing is not an optical illusion. You're looking at the world's tallest woman enjoying tea with the world's smallest woman. Ramsiya Gelgi from Turkey stands at 7 feet 7 inches, while Jyoti Amgi of India is a fraction taller than 2 feet, and she's 30 years old. The duo was honored as icons for Guinness World Record's 70th anniversary edition. The women say it was tough to make eye contact, but they did find common ground. They both love makeup, self-care, and doing their nails. So to be sure, they did become fast friends, and we love to see it. That does it for this edition of the National News Desk. We do invite you to join us again this evening for more coverage of America's top stories. I'm Amira David. Thank you so much for watching.